Hey guys, good morning. What's going on? It's Coach Will, and it is Monday. And this morning, I want to talk to you guys because times are hard. You know what I mean? This is a different time, and I want to have a discussion with you guys about the mindset of this whole thing as gym owners and as people who are in charge of other people's success. You know, one of the things that we forget is that people don't react to what we do based on what we say. Only 7% of the things that we actually communicate to people come across as words. You know, I know this for a fact, and a lot of us have experience with this if you have kids, in that most of what we tell our kids to do, they don't listen, right? And when they're really, really young and they can't speak and they can't tell you if whether or not they're hearing you, when you say things to them, oftentimes it doesn't stick. But then when you're doing something and you're doing it day in and day out and you do it repeatedly, and one day you stop and you look at your 2-year-old and they're doing this exact thing that they've watched you do dozens of times. What that taught me and what I learned and what that confirmed for me was the suspicion that, like, people, you know, words don't change people. They do to a degree. They can plant a seed, right? But if we really want people to see that we walk the walk, then we lead by example. We lead by action, by our actual actions. Like that's what your 2-year-old actually does when something changes and they start following what you're doing. It's because they watched you do it, right? They watch you lead by example, right? So what we're talking about here, guys, is it's, you know, Monday, and for a lot of gyms, you know, within the last month or so, or the last week or so, depending on where you're at, maybe you reopened and you thought when things reopened, it was going to just be daisies, right? And for a lot of gyms, it's great to be open. It's a nice relief, right? But there's a lot of rebuilding having to go on. I know for myself in my gym, you know, I run 3 businesses. I run this business, Big Little Gyms, and right now is where I'm pouring my heart and my soul. And for the last couple of years, my gym ran pretty well on cruise control because I did all this work that I talk about with gym owners. I did all this work to set it up so I could take weeks and months and not have to worry about it and it run really, really well and me just show up and lead. But now it's pulling me back, right? Like I'm getting pulled back into the business because there's things that times have changed and we're running things differently. And, you know, we have members that have left and we have members that are continuing to leave. We have members that are coming back. We have just a lot of good and bad problems all happening at the same time. And no matter whether or not they're good or bad, they require my attention, right? I can't be as hands-off and only work on the business as much as I used to. It's requiring my attention in the business, right? So this has affected me quite a bit more this last couple weeks than I've been affected in a long time by my businesses. By my state of mind is definitely a little more affected. And I really, really felt that before the weekend here. It was Father's Day weekend and there was all these plans and things for me to do and places for me to be to celebrate what was supposed to be my day. And, you know, honestly, I told my wife, I really just don't want to do anything. I want to get as far away from everyone and everything as possible because I am just feeling a little bit burnt out right now. And when I sat there and thought about why I feel like I feel, it's, you know, because of all these unknowns and because it's work, you know. And I thought back to all the times that I've had employees come to me and say, hey, you know, like this project is a little hard, or that's going to be a lot of work, or that's going to be pretty challenging. I would always stop and pause and make eye contact with them and just kind of stare at them right into their eyes for just a second. And I would say, so it's going to be a little bit of work is what you're telling me, right? And they would always kind of get the smirk on their face and say, you know, well, yeah, you know, and they would kind of like, it was almost like I was calling them out on it being work, right? Without having to say anything. And so, you know, this morning I was, you know, trying to get motivated. So, I did the same thing to myself. I stopped and I stared at myself in the mirror and I said, so this is the work, right? This is what you signed up for. And, you know, for a lot of gym owners, this is new territory. For a lot of gym owners in the previous economy, you know, when I say previous economy, like the old days are gone. Like the economy has changed going forward. It resets. This is what happens every decade or 2 decades. This is a hard reset. And sure, the events that cause these things, these black swan events like COVID, maybe we couldn't have charted that being the cause, but something was going to happen and something was going to reset the economy. Whatever the event may have been, something was going to, because, the only way an economy grows like it does here in the United States or in Canada or in Australia or in the UK or in Europe or anywhere where there's progress is it has to reset every so often so we can fix the things that we outgrew. And these things have to happen, otherwise we can't sustain growth, right? Like we can pull back on growth and sustain the way things are currently for longer, but people don't really want that despite how often they fight change, right? Like these things happen, and it happens with your business. And this is when the work begins. And a lot of gym owners don't remember or don't know what it's like to have experienced a time like this where things are just straight up pulled out from underneath them. The rug is pulled out from underneath them. And this is when the real work begins, right? And the answer is never, whenever you're faced with a problem like this and you're looking for a solution, the problem is never to say, well, let's go back and do what we did before, right? Because those solutions were for a different set of problems and for a different time. And it's really important that you understand that it's outside of the box thinking that's going to get you through this. And you also got to understand that like a reset in an economy like this is actually an opportunity. It's a huge opportunity. When economies are good, when people are doing well and everybody's doing well and there's surplus plus cash circulating throughout our economies and there's everybody spending money and going to the nearest gym and is able to spend money on these luxuries, it's easy to get a piece because there's a surplus. The supply is high. The supply of inventory of customers is high. And all you got to do is just make sure they know where you're at. And they show up, right? And they give you their money because right now for them, they feel like it's going to last forever too. So they hand their money out. And then when things reset like this, it's harder. It gets harder to do the game, play the game that way. You can't just be open, right? But here's the thing is everybody in the market prior to the recession was playing the game the same way. And they're all sitting here on their hands the same way as you might be right now, wondering what they want to do next. Most of them aren't going to do anything. Most of them are going to let this situation control them. They're going to be reactive and they're going to take a couple years to figure this out. What I'm here to tell you is that couple year period while everybody else is waiting for it to come to them, if you can go to it, if you can find that solution and be proactive, you can eat up market share. You can become the category king in your market because there's no more rising tide to lift all the ships together, right? It's going to be the ship that swims the fastest and the hardest and pushes the hardest right now that can get ahead of the rest of the market. And it's an opportunity. And yeah, while there's this opportunity going on, there's also a lot of doom and gloom, and it's scary, and there's a lot of reasons not to do things, but that is the resistance. That's what it takes. That's why not everybody is successful when these things happen, is because they all listen to the news and they all do nothing, right? And it's kind of like if you were to go back in time and invest in any one of the top 10 companies in our economy, if you were to go back 30 years ago and invest in Apple, sitting where you are now, it seems like a really smart idea. But if you would have went back 30 years from now with the news and whatever was going on at the time and all the reasons to not invest in Apple, but instead to invest in whatever was the good stock at the time, you probably wouldn't have made the decision, right? Because you would have just listened to the news and did what everybody else did. That's why only so few people put their entire life savings into Apple and went all in and became millionaires later in life, And that's obviously an extreme example, but it is a use case for what we're dealing with right now, that if you go all in right now, well, the stakes are highest, but also really kind of the lowest, because right now, if you were to go all in and go out of business in a year, like no one would hold it against you. People would be like, oh, the COVID thing did it to them. The economy did it to them, right? Like you have as little to lose in regards to your pride right now than to go out of business during a good economy. You know what I mean? Like, right now, there's a lot of things you can blame it on, right? If this doesn't work out. So you might as well go all in because there's the most to gain. There's the least amount of competition. The market's wide open and you have a lot of reasons, a lot of things to blame it on if it doesn't work out. So, if you only want to be as successful as the market will dictate, then this is the time to probably not do anything. But I don't think anybody watching this or anybody that wants to be successful in life is okay with that. Like we got into this because we want to be successful, right? We want to be successful and we want to stand out. We have our experiences and we want to share that with other people. We know that if other people can experience what we've gone through and what we've put together for them, that they will have a life shift that will probably change their lives forever. And along with that comes the money, becomes the respect, becomes the the power, becomes the popularity, all the things that, all the status that you want come with that, right? But you don't get it if you only take risks when the risk is low, right? Like low risk, low reward. Right now, high risk, high reward, but there's a lot of outs. There's a lot of opportunity. And I can tell you that if you guys want to sit back and pout and talk about how the work is harder and want to blame it on external things and things that really like you can't control anyways, then you're going to be a victim and you're only going to be successful as the market dictates. If you want to be successful, then you get to work. All right. You get to work and you do the work and you do things with intent and you follow through on them and you look for the help. You look for the resources. It's not a lack of resources. It's your lack of resourcefulness that gets you in trouble. And that's what people deal with, right? Like they sit there, they throw their hands up. They don't even know where to start. And meanwhile, there's resources all around you. There's people like myself, like send me a message and I will help you. You know what I mean? Like, let me help you. Let's jump on a strategy call. Let's have a conversation and let's talk about how we can get you there. And that's an example of resources that are readily available to you. It's not that your resources are lacking. It's that your resourcefulness, your ability to get off of your hands and do something and take action. And in a time where the reward and the payoff is incredibly high, while it's also risky, but while there's also a lot of reasons you can blame it on besides yourself if it doesn't work out. So let's get after it. Let's take advantage of this. This is opportunity, guys. It's passing you by day. And if you want to sit here and let the news affect you and control and dictate your next move, that's totally fine. But for those of you that don't want to just be like the other status quo, like the other 95% of what I'm just talking about right there, then hit me up. Send me a message, go to biglittlegyms.com, submit your information, fill out the survey, tell me about yourself, and schedule a strategy call. Let's get on and talk. Have a good day, guys. Let's crush it this week. Bye.